Right now, somewhere on your phone, there is a number quietly killing your experience, and you have probably never actually understood what it means. Storage full, memory low. You have seen it 100 times, and every time you do the same thing. Delete photos, delete apps, delete messages you actually wanted. But what if I told you that almost everything you have deleted over the years didn't need to go? What if the real problem was never your files? It was something hiding underneath them that nobody at Google has ever clearly explained to you. Stay until the end, because this changes how you'll use your phone forever. Let's start with the lie almost every Android user has believed without question. You think memory and storage are the same thing. They are not. They have never been the same thing. And the fact that you didn't know this, even after years of owning a smartphone, is not your fault. It's by design. Google's own help documentation quietly distinguishes the two. Storage is where you keep data, like your music and photos, while memory is where your phone actually runs programs, like apps and the Android system itself. Read that again. One is a warehouse, the other is a workspace. And for years you have been treating the workspace like the warehouse, trying to clean something that was never meant to be cleaned the way you've been cleaning it. Here's where it gets uncomfortable. If storage and memory are different systems, then every time your phone tells you it's low on memory and you respond by deleting your vacation photos, you're solving the wrong problem. You're attacking the warehouse to fix the workspace. It's the equivalent of throwing out your furniture because your computer's processor is overheating. It feels productive, it is not. And this single misunderstanding, repeated across more than 3 billion Android devices worldwide, is probably the most common act of unnecessary digital self-sabotage happening on the planet right now. So why does this confusion exist at all? Because phone manufacturers have never had a strong incentive to explain it clearly. A confused user who deletes things is a user who eventually buys a new phone with more storage or pays for a cloud subscription out of panic. The friction works in their favor. But once you understand the actual architecture sitting inside your device, you stop reacting out of fear. And you start operating with precision. This is where the real method begins. Think about your phone as having two separate brains. The first is RAM, random access memory, and this is your phone's short-term thinking space. Every app you have open, every background process keeping your messages syncing, every half-finished scroll session on social media, all of it is sitting in RAM right now, consuming a limited and finite amount of space. The second brain is your internal storage, the long-term archive, where your actual files, photos, videos, and installed apps physically live. RAM is temporary and rewritten constantly. Storage is permanent until you choose to remove something from it. And here is the part that almost nobody tells you. You can completely clear RAM. Instantly, completely, every single time, without deleting one file from storage. Ever. How? The simplest, most overlooked method in the history of smartphones? Restarting your device. When you restart an Android phone, every process sitting in RAM gets wiped clean. Every background app, every memory leak, every zombie process from an app that crashed 3 days ago and never properly closed, gone. Not deleted, cleared. Your photos stay, your messages stay, your apps stay exactly where they were. But the invisible clutter sitting in your phone's short-term memory, the clutter actually responsible for that laggy, sluggish, overheating feeling, that disappears completely. And yet most people go months, sometimes longer, without ever restarting their phone. They just keep deleting things instead, attacking the wrong target over and over. But restarting only solves half the equation. Because eventually, your problem isn't RAM lag, it's the dreaded storage almost full notification. And this is where the second hidden system comes into play, one most users scroll past every single day without realizing what it actually is: cache. Cache is not your data. This distinction matters more than almost anything else in this entire video. When an app runs, it temporarily stores small pieces of information, thumbnail previews, login session tokens, preloaded content, so that the next time you open it, it loads faster. None of this is your personal information. None of it is irreplaceable. It is disposable scaffolding the app built for speed, and clearing it does not touch your photos, your saved logins, your game progress, or your conversations. This is why Clear Cache and Clear Data are two completely different buttons sitting right next to each other in your settings, and why confusing them has caused more accidental data loss than almost any other mistake on Android. Clear Cache, and you lose nothing except temporary clutter. Clear Data, and you reset the app back to a blank slate, as if you had just installed it for the first time. One is safe, the other is not. And the terrifying part is how many people have tapped the wrong one in a panic, wiping out hours of progress in a game or losing saved preferences in an app, simply because nobody ever explained the difference clearly. Now here's where the strategy actually compounds. Instead of clearing cache app by app, a tedious process that barely moves the needle, Android gives you a centralized command center most people have never opened. Inside your Settings app, under Storage, there's a tool specifically built for this exact mission, freeing up space without touching your actual files. From there, you can tap into a free up space flow that lets you select categories of files, and if you scroll into the settings within that tool, you'll find an option called Smart Storage. Turn it on, and your phone begins automatically managing your photo backups in the background, quietly clearing backed up images once your storage starts running low without you lifting a finger. This same menu also reveals which downloaded files are sitting untouched, allowing you to move them off your phone entirely, to a computer, to the cloud, rather than deleting them outright. But this is where most explanations stop, and where the real depth begins. Because the most powerful storage tool on your entire Android device might not even be the Settings app. It might be an app you already have installed and have never seriously used, Files by Google. This app was built quietly, almost invisibly, into the Android ecosystem, and most users have no idea how much control it actually gives them. Files by Google lets you clear temporary app files, delete duplicate files, and remove recommended files, screenshots, and unused apps, all from one unified dashboard. But the part that should genuinely concern every Android user who has never opened this app, it doesn't just find junk. It scans your entire device for duplicate photos, repeated meme files forwarded to you a dozen times across different chat apps, and even low-resolution or blurry images you almost certainly don't need anymore. Think about what that means. Somewhere on your phone right now, there are probably the exact same photos saved 3 or 4 times over, once from the camera roll, once resaved from a messaging app, once duplicated during a backup sync, and you've never seen any of them flagged because you've never had a tool that could actually see the pattern. And here is where the without deleting anything promise becomes real, not theoretical. Files by Google includes a direct backup feature that moves your files to Google Drive, or an SD card, specifically to save space on your device, while still keeping every file fully accessible afterward. This is the move almost nobody talks about. You are not destroying your memories. You are relocating them. The photo still exists. The video still exists. It has simply moved from the limited, expensive real estate of your phone's internal chip to the nearly unlimited expanse of cloud storage, and you can pull it back down to your device at any moment with a single tap. This is not deletion, this is architecture. And once you start thinking about your storage this way, as something to be organized and distributed, rather than something to be aggressively pruned, your entire relationship with your phone's capacity changes. Google Play. But here's where it gets even more interesting, and where most YouTube tutorials completely miss the bigger picture. Buried inside Files by Google is a feature specifically designed to detect apps you haven't opened in a long time, surface them in a dedicated card, and let you select exactly which ones to remove. Now, you might be thinking, wait, isn't uninstalling an app the exact deleting we're trying to avoid? Here's the twist that changes everything. Android's automatic app archiving system removes the bulk of an app you rarely use while specifically preserving your personal data inside it, your saved progress, your settings, your login state, and keeps the icon sitting right there on your home screen as a placeholder. Tap it again whenever you want it back, and as long as it's still available on the Play Store, the app reinstalls and your data is restored exactly as you left it. This is not deletion in any meaningful sense. It's hibernation. The app goes to sleep, your information stays intact, and the space it was occupying comes back to you immediately. Now think about the scale of what we're actually dealing with here. Even in 2026, a huge number of devices from major manufacturers are still shipping with 128 gigabytes of internal storage or less, a number that sounds large until you put a handful of 4K videos, a season of downloaded shows, and 3 years of accumulated app data against it. This is not a problem affecting only budget phones or old devices. This is a structural reality of how smartphones are built in 2026, where camera sensors keep getting better, video files keep getting heavier, and storage chips, while improving, have not kept pace with the sheer volume of data we generate every single day. The math was never in your favor, which is exactly why understanding these tools isn't optional anymore. It's the only sustainable long-term strategy. And this is where the story takes another turn, because Google itself seems to be quietly acknowledging this exact problem at a system level. In the May 2026 system update rolled out across Android phones, Google specifically introduced an updated storage management experience redesigned with the new Material 3 expressive interface. Think about what that signals. This isn't a minor cosmetic tweak buried in a changelog nobody reads. This is Google acknowledging, at the operating system level, that the existing storage management experience wasn't good enough, that users needed a clearer, more visually intelligent way to understand exactly what was eating their space and exactly what they could safely remove without consequence. The interface you'll be looking at over the next year is not the same confusing maze of submenus you grew up tapping through blindly. It's being rebuilt in real time, specifically because the old system failed too many people for too long. But let's go one layer deeper, because there's a myth sitting underneath all of this that deserves to be permanently dismantled. For years, an entire category of apps has existed on the Play Store promising to boost your RAM, clean your memory, and supercharge your phone's performance with a single magic tap. Here is the uncomfortable truth. Many of these so-called booster apps run their own background processes to perform their cleaning, which means they are often consuming the very resource they claim to be freeing up. You install an app to save memory, and that app itself becomes part of the memory problem. It's a closed loop of false reassurance, a placebo button that feels productive while actively working against you. The real boost, the one that costs nothing and requires no third-party app at all, is the restart you've been avoiding, combined with the native cache and storage tools sitting quietly inside settings you've never fully explored. So let's pull every thread of this together into the sequence that actually works. The sequence built entirely around the principle of subtraction without destruction. Start by restarting your device, instantly clearing every clogged background process sitting in RAM with zero risk to a single file. Move next into your Settings app, into the Storage section, and turn on Smart Storage so your phone begins intelligently managing already backed up photos in the background, freeing space without a single manual deletion on your part. From there, open Files by Google and run the clean scan, not to delete your memories, but to identify the duplicates, the repeated forwards, and the low-quality images cluttering your gallery with copies you never asked for. Use the backup feature inside that same app to move your heaviest files, old videos, large downloads, rarely touched documents, into cloud storage where they remain just as accessible, just no longer weighing down your physical chip. And finally, let the archive feature handle the apps you haven't opened in months, putting them into a dormant state that preserves every byte of your personal progress while returning their footprint to you immediately. Here's the part that should genuinely sit with you after watching this. None of these 5 steps required you to delete a single photo, a single message, a single piece of irreplaceable data. Not one. Every gigabyte recovered through this method was either temporary clutter that was never yours to begin with, or your own files simply relocated to a smarter location. Never destroyed, never lost, never gone. The entire memory-full panic that has driven millions of people to delete cherished photos, abandon half-finished games, and lose conversations they wanted to keep. All of it was built on a misunderstanding that the system itself never bothered to explain clearly. But here's the question worth sitting with as you close this video. If the difference between storage and memory has existed since the earliest versions of Android, and the tools to manage both without deletion have existed for years inside settings menus, most people never open. Why does almost nobody actually use them? Is it because the interface was genuinely too confusing, hidden behind menus within menus, as Google itself seems to be admitting with this year's redesign? Or is it because an entire industry of cleaner apps, storage upsells, and panic-driven upgrades has quietly benefited from your confusion for over a decade? As phones keep capturing higher resolution photos, longer 4K videos, and heavier app installs every single year, the gap between what your storage can hold and what your life generates is only going to widen. The real question isn't whether you'll run out of space again. You will. The real question is whether you'll reach for the delete button out of habit, or whether you'll finally reach for the tools that were sitting there the entire time, waiting for someone to actually explain them to you.